So what if that thing that you feel, or what if that thing that is stopping your future isn't what's in front of you, but maybe it's what's behind you? Welcome back to the Beth B Effect, where the vibe is unmuted, unafraid, and unapologetic. I'm Beth, and today we're going to talk about the cost of looking back. What if that thing that's stopping your future isn't in front of you? What if it's what's behind you? What if you're not stuck because you can't move forward, but because part of you is still looking back? Today, I want to talk about something that seems simple, but it's really not. It's the pillar of salt. And I know, before you start on the pillar of salt, I'm going to bring you up to speed, but I think that's prevalent. I think it still makes waves. I think it's still important. Even though it's an old passage in the Bible, I really feel like it's one we could probably look at. Because one glance backwards and she freezes. Now listen, before we judge her and before we say anything weird, right? Some of us have turned around a couple of times. Like, let's be honest. Some of us would have turned around and probably slowed down and squinted a little and said, oh my God, did you just see how she just looked back? Or we probably would have been looking back saying, are we sure that's what's happening? And y'all know exactly what I mean. So before we jump to judgment, let's ask ourselves, why would she do that? Matter of fact, let's ask the harder question. Have we done that? Have we let something go, but we still look back emotionally? Do we still look back physically? We walked away physically, but do we still look back? Do we still look back at the very thing that we tried to break free from, but we still look backwards? Because if we're honest, some people have left a relationship, a situationship, circumstance, but y'all know we still be in our phones talking about, let me see what they doing. And you know good and well, them thumbs be like, we can't move fast enough to get to the secret. We can't move fast enough to get to what's on the social medias or to see check the profiles to see what's going on. And when our brains be like, I'm done, but let me just check. And then we look back. And you know, when you look back, that hurt. It hurts. What if the very thing that's holding you back, what if the very thing that's not allowing you to progress is the very thing that you keep looking back towards? What if you keep turning back when you're supposed to look forward? The pillar of salt, what is it? Why did it happen? Why did she look back? Why couldn't she move forward? Why can't we move forward? What's holding us back? What are we looking back at? Now let's ground this. Like, if you don't know the story, I'm gonna fill you in, right? So I'm sure all my Bible scholars out there are gonna be like, what? But here we are. There was a story in the Bible, right? Where Abraham was one of God's dudes. So they're having a conversation one day, and God says to Abraham, listen, I'm about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because at the end of the day, no, like, I'm not dealing with that. So Abraham's like, but God, you can't destroy the city with good people in it. Like, are you really going to destroy the city with people who are good and doing well and flourishing? And God was like, yeah, but none of those people exist. So Abraham is like, for real? There has to be somebody that exists in a city that it's worth saving. So God's like, no. So Abraham's like, well, there has to be at least like 50. God's like, no. Abraham goes, well, what about 45? God's like, no. 35? No. Abraham gets all the way down to 10. And God says, here, what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to get your family out. Your family, Lot, his wife, and the 2 kids, his 2 daughters. I'll get them out safe and sound. But otherwise, it's about to go down. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. Because, you know, at the time, Sodom and Gomorrah was really like what's going on today. But I'm not going to get into that. So at the end of the day, God sends 2 angels. The angels come down. They go to Lot's house. They get there. They knock on the door. They introduce themselves. They get in. As soon as they step in, the men from the town come to the door and they're like, hey, we want them. So Lot's like, we want who? The men are like, we want them. Talking about the 2 angels. So now Lot's like this can't happen because he knows who they are. He knows what they're there for. He knows that they're there to rescue him and his family. So Lot's like, no, you can't have them. But you can have my 2 daughters. They're virgins. Like, take them. That price has to be worth something. The men were like, no, we don't want them. We want them. So at that point, the angel was like, yeah, bump this. Like, we're rolling up out of here. So they try to get Lot and his family out of the city, and they give them one command. The command was, don't look back. So as they're running out of the city, Lot's wife looks back. Like, she looks back. Now, before we judge her, right, I want to say this, because it's easy to say when we're coming from a bad situation that we can look forward. It's easy to say that when we're in a tight situation or we get a reprieve, right? Sometimes life like releases a hold on us and we feel like we have some kind of freedom. We feel like that freedom is allowing us to be at large. But somewhere during that process, we look back. And the reason we look back is sometimes weird, right? It's not because we love what we see. It's not because we miss what we had. It's because sometimes that thing that's back there, right, is familiar. Now, most people read this story and they say to themselves, this is a punishment, right? Because she looked back. This is a punishment because she didn't listen and she didn't continue running without looking back. Because I don't think that was curiosity, right? Not that it wasn't just curiosity. It could have been curiosity. I'm not saying that it wasn't. But sometimes it could be attachment. Like, think about attachment, right? Her body was leaving, but her heart wasn't. And let's be honest, a lot of people have left situations, but emotionally, they still stand where they are. Emotionally, they can't move forward. They can't see forward. So that's what's important, right? I want to talk about like why people look back. Like, why do we look back? What makes us turn around and look at the very thing that was hurting us? Why are we so attached to the things that make us, that hold us bound, that precludes us from moving forward? When we leave, or when people leave environments that shaped them, even the unhealthy ones, there's always that moment of hesitation. And not because they want to stay, but because everything is familiar. And the brain loves familiar. Even when familiar is a mess. Like, everything could be toe up from the flow up. But human beings, we're funny like that, right? Like, we can complain about something for years and years and years. This gets on my nerve, that gets on my nerves. We pray, we ask God to remove it. And then when the moment finally comes and we're free, a part of us like turns around like, wait, I'm free. That's not happening. Wait, is this what I really want? Maybe I need to go back. Wait, maybe I need to go back. Maybe I'm confused. Like, maybe I moved too fast. Maybe I asked for the wrong thing. But as soon as it starts happening, we either want to run back or we look back. And in that moment, right, the brain is wired to prefer what's familiar over what's healthy. And familiar feels like predictable. Like, I'd rather the devil I know, right? No pun. But predictable feels safe, even if familiar is the very thing that's been actually stressing us the heck out. Y'all know what I'm saying? Like, let's not be weird. Some of us leave something. We leave relationships, we leave environments, we leave a lifestyle. And in that very moment, our mind tries to reconnect us to what we knew. Almost like we're trying to reorient ourselves, right? And in that moment, things could look like looking back. Things could look like nothing was wrong. Or not because things were good, but because we knew it, right? If we go back to Lot's wife, she looked back because she was going to miss the place? Or did she look back because it's what she knew? It's where she grew up. It's where she worked. It's where she raised her children. It's where she was familiar. It's what she knew. It's what she knew. Strangers show up. Maybe she was praying. The Bible doesn't tell us, but maybe she wanted out of there. Maybe she didn't like it. Maybe we don't know. But the fact of the matter is, she looked back. And sometimes we look back, and we look back because what's ahead of us is unknown. It's scary. We're not sure. We're uncertain. And stepping into something new, that's where people start to become uncomfortable. Because freedom sounds great. Like, you ever been in a relationship and you say to yourself, oh my God, I want out of this. Like, this is horrible. This guy gets on my nerves, or this girl gets on my nerves. I wish. And then your wish comes true. And then you're showing up home by yourself. You come home from work with nobody to cook for, nobody to talk to, nobody to agitate you, nobody to get on your nerves. And you start looking back and thinking to yourself, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe this freedom doesn't look so good. And not that it's not, right? Let's be clear. Not that freedom doesn't look good, because some situations do need to end. Some situations are not good for us. Some situations need to be where they are. Some situations we need to walk away from. But we have to be mindful and ready to enter uncharted territory. Because let's talk about what looking back really really means. Looking back just isn't physical. Looking back is emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual, and sometimes it can sound like, I know that was toxic, but you know that sentence was about to go wrong the moment it started with, I know it was toxic, and then ends with but. Like, let's be honest, that but has gotten a lot of people in trouble. And I know it's unhealthy, but I know it stressed me out, but I know it almost ruined my peace, but like, girl, bye. You know exactly what them buts mean. But that little word has convinced people to like reopen doors they worked so hard to close. And y'all know exactly what I mean. And then let's think about this, right? That freezing effect. The Bible says that she became a pillar of salt. What does salt do? It preserves. Salt freezes things in time. Salt stops growth. And if the soil becomes too salty, what happens? Nothing will grow there. So in that instance, like looking back, for us, it preserves pain. Looking back preserves attachment. Looking back could even preserve like a trauma bond. You don't move, you don't grow, you freeze. Y'all know exactly what that looks like. Some of us even think we're stuck. But sometimes we're not stuck. We're not stuck. We're just preserved in the moment. We're preserved in a moment that we never left emotionally. Now let's talk about modern day pillars of salt. Like, let's make it real, right? Like, let's make it real. Let's look and see what it really looks like today, right? Because we know what she looked like, because rumor has it, you can go to where that pillar of salt is, find it, and it's still standing there. And that's something to hear. And whether you believe it or don't, right? Because everybody doesn't have to partake in the Bible sayings. Everybody does not have to take the Bible as a holy book. Everybody doesn't have to believe the scriptures that are there or that the words in the Bible were inspired by God. But at the end of the day, some of this stuff can be proven, right? And what I love most, I love evidence. I love evidence because evidence tells the solid truth. Evidence is something that you can look at, go back to, examine, and based on the observation, you can make a profound hypothesis or a good decision, or you can ground your decision making in that evidence, in that information. So I love evidence. I never walk away without it. But back to the modern day pillars of salt. What does it look like? Going back to a relationship that broke you. Checking someone's page when you know it's going to disturb your peace. Like, what? Why would I do that? I mean, but we do. Because you already know what you're about to see, right? Because you're the pillar of salt. You're stuck in your place. You can't move on because the love that you have really is burning inside. Maybe you made the wrong choice. Maybe they aren't good for your health. Or even if they aren't, maybe it just is what it is. And this is the life I'm supposed to live. Like, you know, like some of us rather chaos. But that's what we know. Chaos is what we know. It's what we've studied and become to learn. It gives us instructions on how to be, who to be, and how to manage. And more importantly, chaos comes with instruction. You already know how the argument's gonna go. You already know the cycle. Like, dysfunction is predictable. And sad to say, that's somehow sometimes easier to manage. And what makes that different from healing is healing doesn't come with a script. Like, you gotta figure that out. You gotta figure it out. You gotta figure it out. You gotta figure it out as you go. Each day, each instant, each moment is like moment to moment. You have to figure it out. Nothing is etched in stone. And it's so different from what you know to be true. It's so different from what you have stored as an emotional health. It's different. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't look the same. It doesn't walk the same. It doesn't talk the same. It doesn't react the same. If you ever run into someone that loves you, if you ever run into anything that pours back into you, you'll be able to see the dysfunction. But that's for another episode, because we got to get into pouring and being poured into, because all this pouring is emptying us out and not being like refilled, not being given back to. There's no reciprocation. That's exhausting. But again, that's for another episode. There was a time in my life when I left something, but emotionally I hadn't. I told people I was done. I told myself I was done, but I still replayed it. I replayed it over and over and over in my head. Like my brain had a subscription to the past. And the worst part is all the episodes in my head were on repeat. Like, I remembered everything that broke me, everything that made me feel like I wasn't worthy, everything that made me feel like I didn't deserve anything. I remembered all that. I remembered the words. I remembered the brokenness. I remembered the dysfunction. I remembered everything. I remembered the levels of immaturity that I had to overcome, where I had to be the bigger person, which was quite often. I remembered all those things. Those same memories and those same conversations and those same situations were already over, but they just kept playing in my head. And then eventually I realized that the instruction wasn't just to leave, right? Because I knew that those things were unhealthy for me at the time. I knew that those things were unhealthy for me at the time. And I knew the only option was to leave, was to get out of there and not look back. And even later in the Bible, like Jesus even referenced when he's doing, when he's talking to his boys at some point, he's like, remember Lot's wife. And that's all he said. And in that moment, that helps remind us that don't be like that. When it's time to go, it's time to go. Like, that's it. And he only said those 3 words. No sermon, no explanation. It was basically him just saying, you already know the story, like, don't look back. Because sometimes the biggest obstacle in our future is not what's ahead of us, right? It's what we keep turning around to look at. That's always the problem. We can't just look forward and keep moving because we are human nature. Always have to look back. And looking back wouldn't always be a bad thing, right? Because sometimes we need to look back to remember where we came from so we can continue pushing forward. But we can't become like a pillar of salt. We can't get stuck in the moment. We can't stay where we are. We can't be stagnant and not move forward. If we know something was unhealthy for us and it was toxic and we need to get out of there, we need to move forward. Yeah, sneak back if you need to, but keep it moving. We got to keep it pushing. And sometimes we're our biggest advocate, right? We have to tell ourselves, you can do this. You can move forward. Believe in yourself. Like I said, some people think the pillar of salt was a story about punishment, but I think it was about attachment. Because attachment is serious. Attachment is real. We don't realize how attached we are to something. You ever had a car that you really, really liked? Maybe it was your first car. You had a boyfriend or a spouse that you really, really liked. Girl, you ever had a pair of shoes that you really, really liked? And you go, what are these shoes? I used to have a pair of pumps that I loved it to death. Like I loved it in them. For real, for real. And you know I did. Because I had the heel repaired 3-4 times. But these were my favorite pair of shoes. I love dancing. And I think I told you all this before, but I love dancing. I can spin on a pump with no problem and with extreme ease. But there was one pair of shoes that I could do this on whether I was good or not, right? Depending on where I was. And I could spin in those shoes forever. Sometimes I'd wear the shoes even if they didn't even match my outfit. I would wear those shoes. I would wear the shoes everywhere I went. House party if I thought it was going to be a dance floor. A club if I thought it was going to be a dance floor. And sometimes if they matched my black dress, I went to church. But those were my shoes. And I loved them. Even the design, the pattern on them, I loved them. But one day I had the shoes repaired. The repairman said, I repaired these so many times and this time you've ripped the skin off the heel. This is soft leather and I probably won't be able to match it, so it's going to be discolored. Would you mind if I changed the leather on the posts of both shoes and repaired the heel? At first I was like, yeah, because then I get to keep my shoes and I get to keep my dance. I get to keep spinning and I get to keep my shoe. But he did it. And when I looked at the shoe, it wasn't the same. It was different. Now I paid all that money to get those shoes repaired and get the heel redone. But I knew it was time to part company. And I couldn't give the shoes away because, as weird as this sounds, I had worn the shoes so much. The insole of the shoe wasn't something that I could just give away, because I didn't want the next person to be like, "Dang, you wore these shoes to death," because I know I had, so I couldn't pass those shoes on. The only option was to throw them away. I could have kept them with what they looked like, but they didn't mean the same. It wasn't the same. It was almost like a toxic situation. I was forcing myself to love them. And I know this comparison might sound weird, but just hear me out. I loved my shoe. The new version of my shoe I did not like. If I would have kept them, I would have forced myself to stay with them. But that was an attachment. It wasn't just the shoe I loved. It was the attachment, the memories that I had with the shoe, the things, the capabilities, things I could do and where I went and where I've been and pictures. There were so many different attachments to the shoe. And as simple as this may sound, some of us experience the same thing with real life situations, people, places, things, jobs, situations we know we need to walk away from, but we don't. We don't. And why? Because we don't walk away from because we're familiar with it. We don't walk away. And even when it changes, right? Even when it changes, even when you get in a relationship with the person and they're the sweetest thing is pie, they're the sweetest thing. And then they change. They're not the same. They talk different. They walk different. They text different. They show up different. The representative takes a break and you never see him again. You know it's time. You know it's time. But because that person looks the same, right? You don't feel the same, but it looks the same. Eyes are closed and dim to what's really in front of you. Sometimes that job that pays you the grand old piece, but you know it's time to go. You're unhappy with it. It doesn't feel the same. You don't show up the same. Those are the toxic situations that we get into. And that attachment, right? The very moment we say, okay, I'm going to get out of this. I'm unhappy here. I can't move forward. I'm stagnant. I'm not going to progress. What do? Just as we're inching out the door, just as we're looking to make a change, just as we're looking forward to go into a better situation, we look back. And then when we do, what do we see? We become empathetic for the very thing that hurt us. We become empathetic for the very thing that's already technically let us go. But we can't let it go because we're attached. So always be mindful. If something had to end, let it end. If something had to be removed, let it stay removed. And if you're moving forward, like keep your eyes forward. Because sometimes the only thing separating you from freedom is that last look back. This has been the Beth B Effect. And until next time, please stay grounded.